Welcome back. We're here with episode number 7 of our series, Love in the Real World. And we're talking obviously about love and how important love is to our faith. We know that Jesus said the greatest commandment is to love God and to love our neighbor as ourselves. And he even extended that to our enemies.
He did.
But love in English is such a general word. We use it in so many ways. It can mean different things in different contexts. And sometimes our perceived meanings from today can actually make it harder for us to understand what it really means to love others, our neighbors, and our enemies, and even God from a biblical perspective. So in this series, we're trying to understand love as it was meant to be understood as we read the Bible, and in particular through the teachings of Jesus. We want to make it real for us today and less vague. And we also want to challenge ourselves and you to live it out, to celebrate maybe the ways you're already doing it, and to think about ways that you can express it to others that you may not be. So let's maybe take a few minutes and review what we've talked about so far in this series.
Right, yeah. So we started off with the idea is that love is important. And one of the biggest reasons is because it's a defining characteristic of God.
Absolutely, yeah.
Love is also important to us. I mean, we have learned in a previous series that our brains are wired to be fueled by joy, and love is so crucial to joy. So we need that. We function better with it in our lives.
Mm-hmm. So then we looked at a couple of definitions. We looked at the Old Testament definition, which was the word hesed, is the Hebrew word, meaning attachment, love, and it has other sort of descriptors along with it, like steadfast, relational, enduring, covenantal. Then in the New Testament, the Greek word is agape, and that really means to have unconditional love. It also has a selfless or self-sacrificing idea attached to it. So it's a love that puts others' needs ahead of your own.
That's right. And so both these words, as much as they can be used, and like in the Greek Old Testament, there are many places where hesed was replaced with agape, moving from Hebrew language to Greek. Yeah. They are not exactly the same, but what they do is give us a deeper meaning in those differences of what the love in the Bible means when describing God and how we can relate to God and to each other.
Okay, we also looked at some barriers to love or being loving. So we talked about inattention, the idea that we sometimes get distracted or busy and neglect of those that are even closest to us. Then we have our negative emotions, the things that we tend to like anger or sadness, which can literally overwhelm us or us overwhelm others. And then we have something might seem a little vague called privilege, but when you start looking at it, it's things like greed and scarcity mentality or just feeling entitled. And then we looked at ways to counteract each of those.
Right. And then we looked at some real world examples and how to apply the golden rule. Obviously, with some imagination, we talked about tools that are helpful, like storytelling or Bless, which is a series we did a little while ago that we unpacked that a bit more. And that simply just means we begin with prayer, but we bless, we listen, we eat, we serve, and we enter into the story.
Sure. And then last time we looked at some more specific ways of being that loving looks like in our lives. So we talked about empathy, compassion, affirmation, and patience.
That's right.
Maybe you can just give us a quick rundown of those.
Yeah, like essentially, there's compassion is an action. It's not just a feeling. That's sympathy, and it's the idea of the wanting to alleviate suffering in others and do something that is for the betterment of them. We have empathy, which is basically the idea of understanding what people are going, their emotions, their feelings from their perspective, not yours, theirs. Patience is slowing down, taking the time in life, enjoying things in life. We'll get a little bit even of that when we talk about stuff today.
Yep.
But it's the idea of slow down, and are you that speaking against entitlement. And things like that. And then affirmation, which really is the idea of calling out that image of God in people, the strengths of the values, and being able to speak that and call that out. And just remember, much like the stuff with today, this is a choice. And you can choose the very healthy, life-giving way, which is gratitude, and we'll talk about that today, and things like that. Or we can choose a neutral point, which is not helpful at all, can be actually definitely, or the outright cruel way to...
The dark or the negative side.
Yeah, exactly.
So today we're going to continue looking at other ways that love might manifest itself or look like in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be looking at gratitude, generosity, hope, and forgiveness. So let's kick it off with gratitude.
Yeah.
Gratitude is simply noticing and appreciating what is good. So some good things are big and some are small, some are private, and some are shared. So again, it's the same sort of principles apply where we're looking at what might be good in our own lives and what might be good in others.
Well, this also is such a way that I would use the word, it helps us have a stance of gratification, but also a stance of what we talked last time, like to be able to affirm.
Yeah.
If we're having a stance of gratitude, we're saying yes, thank you, and being grateful with how people are and what they do in our lives, but just being thankful, like you said, I can sit here and drink my coffee. This is really, really cool.
Yeah.
And again, it becomes our stance into which everything we can look at through the eyes of gratitude. That again, much like we talked about in a previous series, helps our brain in the joy, and it's actually healthier for our brain.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's healthier in how then we interact with those we want to. It's almost like sometimes I think the stance of gratitude helps us be empathetic and compassionate and patient and all of those things.
It literally opens the door, because
Yes.
when I say thank you, and if I say thank you for, you can affirm what action they did for you, how it made you feel, all those kinds of things. So, it's a real gateway to some of these
really
other practices. So let's just quickly review what it means like for ourselves. So take the example you just said, just having a cup of coffee in the morning. You're just going to be present in that moment.
Yeah.
You're going to notice the smell of the coffee, how warm the cup feels in your hand as you wake up, and how it makes you feel. Then we're going to take it a step further, and we're going to savor, celebrate, and appreciate whatever is good in that moment, no matter how big or how small. So savor the taste of the coffee. I know my wife does this almost every day. She comes down and remarks about how good the room smells because I've just ground the coffee.
Oh, yeah.
Just how good it tastes once you start drinking it. And again, it's just appreciating in that moment. Again, we're talking about a very, very small thing here. Yeah. But again, it goes down to the patience we talked about last time, slowing down and noticing.
And that practice will help us, again, like we just said this, but that practice will help us in so the other practices of love. It's almost like we talked about joy being a fuel and gratitude being that. It fuels so much of these ways to really love other people.
And on to that note, gratitude can also be remembered. So it doesn't always have to be something that's happening in the moment, because sometimes the moments aren't very good. So what we can do then is remember things that were good in the past. So it helps to keep some sort of record of the good things that happened to you, and then you can give yourself a spark of joy when you revisit those memories. Another way the gratitude works is in anticipation. So when we mark down on the calendar that we're picking up a friend at the airport, or we're going to be taking a vacation, or I know you like to go to concerts. If you've got a concert coming up or some other event, if you're a sports person or a whatever, craft person, we can be grateful for the thing even before it happens, because we get joy out of just anticipating that it's coming up. And then studies show we actually get more enjoyment out of the thing if we do that when we practice anticipation. And I can honestly say that this was a big part of our previous series we worked through last year. And I started practicing this, and I can say from my experience, it really does work.
I think it's also, again, it's so important that this is a choice we make to do.
Yep.
And we can choose the more neutral thing, which basically we just don't acknowledge anything, any gratitude.
Yep.
Or the opposite, which is like we just like basically speak to how awful things
Yeah.
are.
Always
or
complaining. Yeah.
Always complaining, and just like that. It's like it's the exact opposite.
Yep. Or in that neutral ground, we just be inattentive.
Yeah. Well, yeah. You're just like not acknowledging anything.
Exactly. Another thing about gratitude is it can be shared. Noticing and appreciating when someone does something for you.
Yeah.
So again, thank you for doing that kind of thing. Or sometimes it's just experiencing something together. Yeah. I know when on our last vacation, we were at the ocean, and my wife likes to get up early and watch the sunrise. Me, not so much, but I started getting up and doing it with her because it brought her such joy, and her joy gave me joy. So, and then it can build up over time. So, maybe it's have the ability to write an email or a letter to someone that has been a positive influence on you over a period of time, like a friend, a mentor, a teacher, or a family member, and just tell them how much you appreciate them for their support over the years and what kind of difference it's made in your life. 1 Thessalonians 5:18 says, this is again Paul talking, "Be thankful in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you who belong to Christ Jesus." So gratitude is a very important principle in the New Testament.
It really is. Your life will be more joyful if we're expressing gratitude. We need to make sure we're not too busy to notice and to take the time to express it, because we can just take things for granted.
And that's kind of a neutral ground too.
It is
taking things for granted.
It absolutely is.
And that again leads to the barrier of
entitlement too. Yeah.
Let's move on to generosity.
All right.
So to be loving is to be generous.
Yeah.
Generous. I like how William R. Miller defined it in the book. His book is called Loving Kindness, Realizing and Practicing Your True Self. Great book to pick up if you're looking for those kinds of things. It's a generosity, as he defines it, it's a willingness or joy to share what you have with others and to give more than is necessary or expected.
That is good.
A good verse that goes along with that is Hebrews 13:16. It says, "And don't forget to do good and to share with those in needs. These are the sacrifices that please God." So generosity is a byproduct of a deep and secure sense of enough. And we're going to talk about contentment in another podcast, as well as being a sense of being connected or in community with others. So we each have our own needs, but we also have a sense of what we have left over that will benefit the community.
Right.
And I think this is extremely important because we did in the Barriers podcast talk about the scarcity mentality.
Yeah.
That no matter how much you have, enough is never really enough. So this will completely inhibit your generosity. But we did learn in that podcast that the actual to counteract that mentality is to be generous and to give something away.
Well, and that's really interesting. Probably, again, moving to that choice idea, because with again that positive generosity, this is almost that neutrality where it's sort of like it's scarcity, so I'm just going to almost hoard it. I'm going to keep it for myself.
Yep.
I'm just not going to share it, all that sort of stuff. Where the other side of it, that cruel side of it, is not, so I need more, so I'm going to take it from you.
Take your stuff, yeah.
The neutral is this is my stuff and nobody touch it.
Yep. So we can see that generosity is really countercultural today. Mm-hmm. There's a large difference in what, just as an example, there's a large difference in what people think they need today versus, say, 40 years ago. I'm saying the 1980s, and I feel really old now. House sizes, for example.
Back in the 1900s.
Yeah, not quite that far. House sizes, for example, have more than doubled.
It was that far.
In 40 years. Yeah. And they've doubled the house size that we live in, typical house sizes we live in today, and also we have the amount of debt to actually own and operate those homes. So our culture is so individualistic, it can lead to greed, which is the opposite of generosity, meaning I need to acquire more than I need without concern or worse, depriving others.
That's right. You do it at the expense of everyone else.
Yeah. Now you might be thinking, I haven't got enough to go around for myself, or my own family, let alone be generous with others. So let's just remind ourselves in all of these, generosity is not limited just to money or possessions. It can also apply to time, skills, recognition, which is affirmation, affection, and acts of kindness.
Well, and then again, we want to move to the neutrality or cruelty side of it. It's like the neutrality is, I've got skills, but I'm not sharing them.
Yeah.
But
you'll be able to figure it out.
Yeah. The cruelty is simply like, I've got skills, don't share them, but you have skills and you will do them for me.
For me, yeah. Another barrier to being generous is that we feel like it has to be big and noticeable to have any value. Well, I can't give $1 million. What good is my $10 going to do? And as we said all along in this series, start small.
Yeah.
Once it becomes a habit, you can expand it or grow it. So it might even be starting with something you already have. You know, that thing you might have purchased that you used once and now it just takes up space in your home or sits in the back of a drawer. Who might benefit from you giving whatever that is to them, and you get the bonus of more space. Another helpful practice is self-reflection. In the book, William R. Miller talks about slicing the pie. And what he means by that is you sort of make a pie chart. We'll just use time as an example of how you spend your time in a week.
Yeah.
Look at it and then say, okay, I look at the piece where I spent scrolling on my phone. That's much bigger than I thought it was.
Yeah.
And maybe I could take a little time from there. And so you're just making adjustments.
You are. Yeah.
You obviously have to sleep. Obviously you have to work. There's other things that you're responsible for that you have to take care of. Yeah. It's the other stuff that really, I think, will make the difference when it comes to generosity.
That's right. Yeah, because I mean, he talks about basically like the neutral or idle zone, and he said quite often that's one of the biggest zones that we have, and sometimes we don't realize how big a zone it really is.
Yeah, and we can just be a little more intentional.
Yeah.
And again, that comes down to the choice idea. This is always a choice. We can, if we don't think about it, we can start scrolling, and it's not intentional. But when we are intentional, I put it on my calendar, I'm going to call somebody or have coffee with them or whatever, then it does, it gets done. At least for me, that's the way it works. Lastly, the last thing I want to talk about today is it's the attitude with which you are being generous affects your well-being.
Yeah.
You can choose to be generous, but do it in a begrudgingly way. If I have to, I guess, as opposed to giving with joy. And I forgot to write the verse down where it talks about the Lord loves a cheerful giver.
Yeah.
When you give with a joyful heart, I'm happy to give this to you. I'm happy to see that maybe you benefited from it. You're going to get more out of the practice. So.
Absolutely. And next we're going to look at hope. To be hopeful is to look for the best, not because of the current evidence, sometimes even often in spite of it, but hope not only affects you and me personally, but those whose lives we touch. Hope is a huge thing. In fact, most people who are struggling in life and we're going to see a counselor or something like that is what they need the counselor to do is help them recognize where hope is because they've lost sight of it.
So hopefulness is to anticipate and look expectantly for the best in others and in life, in yourself too, and in life and in the future. So I remember I spoke on this years ago where there was a study done in a middle school where a teacher was told she was given a class of gifted youngsters.
Yeah.
And over the year, they all excelled in their studies. And after the year was done, the teacher found out that none of the students were actually gifted. They were all just chosen at random. But it was her seeing the good in them and expecting the best for them that helped them excel in their studies. So again, it's her having hope in them and passing that hope on to them that actually made them appear to be gifted or fulfill what she expected of them. And I think in society today, we tend to rely on present evidence to make judgments of people.
Yep.
So we might say this is being objective or realistic. And in the book, William R. Miller says that this perspective arrogantly assumes that the perceived present reality is the only possible reality,
That's a really
which
good
is
point.
absolutely not true.
Yeah.
So hopefulness propels us forward beyond the objective or realistic present. At its worst,
Yeah,
culture
this is
can
it.
be pessimistic or cynical. Always, so those are the sort of middle and the
This is the other end of
other
opposite.
end. Yeah. So to be pessimistic is sort of the neutral, and be downright cynical.
Yeah.
It gets a little further away. So both of them lead toward expecting a worse or the worst possible outcome.
That's right.
Now, the good news is that being hopeful again is literally a choice. It's not predetermined by our natures or where we grew up or how we grew up or by our genes or even our past experience. And again, we've said this before, but it applies to all of these. It's a choice. We have the ability to choose to think the best of other people or the worst.
Mm-hmm.
If we hope for the best, we might be wrong, but likely we will bring a better future for those involved than pessimism or cynicism ever could.
Well, and going back to the story you mentioned, like if hope is something we are walking out with, like the hope that we have that we're building in ourselves can in how we approach other people puts them in a place for grow more success.
Absolutely,
as
yeah.
stated from that story. It's like, so it's not even so much, and we want to do this to instill hope in those people. Simply, if it's in us,
Yep.
it'll affect the success of how people and the flourishing of people around us.
Yeah. And again, we might be wrong. They might not come all the way up to what we hoped for them, but it's going to be better than if
Yeah.
we were constantly riding them with pessimism or cynicism. And so the old adage that says optimism and pessimism which optimism is towards hope, tend to become self-fulfilling prophecies.
Right.
So if you think either way, it's going to be true. So one way to practice hope for yourself is to monitor your self-talk. If we're not intentional, our self-talk tends to be critical and pessimistic against ourselves. So, why did I do that? That was so stupid. I say that. I sometimes even say it out loud, and my family loves me enough to correct me on that. So, but and I don't necessarily mean I hate myself. It's just those are the words that I say to myself. And if we choose instead to be hopeful and speak encouraging words repeatedly to ourselves, we can actually change our actions. I was watching a short reel this week from a psychologist, and she said our brains don't always believe what is true. It believes what we repeat.
Right.
Your thoughts shape your feelings. Your feelings drive your actions. Your actions become your identity. And so you can see how all of those things are connected. So we can see how helpful words repeated to ourselves can actually change who we become. And again, we've talked about this before. There's a book by John Acuff called Soundtracks. It was part of the Jim Wilder stuff we did studies on. So I think this is a very powerful way to practice hope with yourself. Hope can also be given away. Most of the examples we talked about so far have been that. And it doesn't mean disagreeing with someone who is pessimistic by saying they're wrong, or even trying to be a cheerleader that tries to push people into, come on, you can do it,
Right,
kind of
yeah.
thing. Apparently, neither of those things work. According to the author, it's really offering your own perspective of hope, which is what you just said.
Yeah.
If I have the hope, then it can be
It can
passed
be
on.
transferred in
Yeah.
a way.
And what do we have as followers of Jesus hope for? Well, Romans 8:20-21 says, all creation was subjected to God's curse, but with eager hope, the creation looks forward to the day when it will join God's children in glorious freedom from death and decay. So we're looking forward to the day when Jesus comes back and puts the world back right the way he made it to be, and for us to be what he hopes
Right.
for us. So
Right. And we're going to finish off today's of these attributes that we're talking about today
Yep.
with forgiveness.
Yep. Now in the live stream last Sunday, I referred to an article in Slate magazine about the toxic grip revenge has on our society today.
Right. Yeah.
And the only way we can counteract it is forgiveness. So
Which probably no one's here like, vengeance is how we do it.
Yeah,
like, no, it doesn't.
Doesn't work.
Not the way we think it does.
So today we'd like to just dig a little bit deeper into the forgiveness side of it, not the just against revenge.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes the best way to understand something is to know what it's not.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll look at some common misconceptions about forgiveness. So forgiveness is not forgetting or pretending the offense never occurred.
Right.
Forgiveness, again, is a choice with the full memory of what happened. Forgiveness is not even acquittal. Acquittal is a legal term meaning not guilty and without responsibility for what happened. If a person is not guilty and didn't do anything wrong, then they don't need forgiveness.
Right.
Forgiveness needs to be given, again, it's a choice, with the full knowledge that the person is responsible for what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Forgiveness is also not earned. This, I don't say it surprised me, but it certainly got my attention. It's not an award or gift to those who feel remorseful or have jumped through enough hoops that I expected them to deserve my forgiveness. The choice to forgive cannot be justified by the person's actions or if they feel remorseful or not. Forgiveness is also not approval. To forgive is not to approve of the other person's actions.
Right.
Forgiveness needs to be given even though we do not approve.
Mm-hmm.
Forgiveness is also not, finally, acceptance. It's not saying that you can do whatever you like in the future, it's okay with me. That's just the way you are.
Yeah.
We hear that lots of times. It's not a suspension of our values or an absence of rules or guidelines, and it certainly isn't permission to keep repeating the offense. In some cases, forgiveness may inspire or even enable change, but it has to be a gift given with the full knowledge that the future might not be different, but other than an act of hope that it will.
Right.
And we just talked about hope.
We
and
did.
It can make a difference.
Really can.
So simply, forgiveness is like accepting what happened and moving on. It's given without expectation of reciprocation. In fact, it could also be a process. So you had to say, I choose to forgive and it's over. Sometimes it takes time to process your feelings. And it isn't a once and for all choice. It may take some time and even some maturity on our part to be able to forgive that person that's offended us.
Yeah, and I would say like I've definitely experienced that in my life where it's just like,
Yep.
It's almost to look at it as a spectrum. There's a time where like, okay, I'm more forgiving of this instance or person than I was a year ago.
Yep. Exactly.
You know? And it's working, it's process, but it is that process. And it's okay to take time.
I just wanted to note here too that it may not be safe to go and say to someone who's offended you, I forgive you, verbally, face to their face, especially if the other person doesn't think they've done anything wrong.
Yeah.
Or it's in their opinion, that was so minor, you're blowing out of proportion. It doesn't help you and it doesn't really help them either. So really, forgiveness might bring healing to others, but really it's a choice you make for your own healing and well-being.
Well, and it's really important to see it as a breaking of cycles.
Yeah.
And so, yes, we're going back to the vengeance thing. It breaks the cycle of you taking vengeance on that person. It also
escalates.
Which escalates, yeah. But it's also, we have to understand, like, when we've been hurt and we hold on unforgiveness, it poisons ourselves and it can poison people who are not even part of that relationship, that thing, what happened.
Yeah.
And it's breaking that cycle where in our unforgiveness, we can in turn hurt ourselves, but also hurt other people who are just not attached to that at all. Yeah. And so we're breaking that cycle. It's saying, I'm breaking that cycle.
Yep, I like that. Jesus included forgiveness in the Lord's Prayer, which was part of the Sermon on the Mount. We just came through a series on that. Mm-hmm. Matthew 6:12 says, and forgive us our sins as we have forgiven those who sin against us. So Jesus has this, he went on to say after that, if you don't forgive others, God's not going to forgive you. So forgiveness is a huge part of being a follower of Jesus. It's not optional.
So that's those four things we covered today, which were forgiveness. We just talked about with hope. I've already forgotten the other one. Generosity and gratitude.
There we go.
And so we have a few questions just that will hopefully help just again further some thoughts and conversations with friends or your small group. So question number 1, what is something that stood out for you today that was new to you or something you were reminded of?
Question number 2, what is something or someone you are grateful for? Maybe take a moment and share that with someone, and always be on the lookout for good things in your day that you can be grateful for.
Question 3, take a moment for some self-reflection and try the practice of slicing the pie with regards to your time. What adjustments would you make to be more generous with your time and with the people you care about?
Number 4, do you really believe that hope is a choice? What is holding you back from making that choice?
And number 5, of all the things that forgiveness is not, which one or ones did you believe and find it a relief that it was not a requirement in forgiveness? Who do you need to forgive so that you can move on in your own life? So again, sometimes those questions can help us sort of, again, bring it into our world, bring it into our lives. And again, this is all about how we love. And loving our neighbors, which is like what we're supposed to do, is very, very strongly when Jesus said that it was love your neighbors as yourself. And so there's this in and out thing going there. So if you're looking at someone like, oh, I think I got to forgive myself for something before I can forgive the person, that's legit.
Totally.
Like this is a two-way street. Loving kindness is for the other and for ourselves. And so just really remember that. Be easy on yourself, especially if you feel like, oh, maybe I need some growth in some of these areas. Take some time. Love yourself, love your neighbor, love God. Thank you so much for joining us. Please like and subscribe. That really helps us out. And if you'd like to make a donation, there is a link in the description below. Have a great week.